Welcome to the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum. I'm your host, Richard Nelson. There's an open seat in Kentucky Senate District 17 as Kentucky State Senate Majority Leader Damon Thayer is not seeking re-election. The district covers Scott, Grant, part of Kenton, and part of Kenton counties. Joining us for this segment is Republican candidate Matt Nunn. He won his primary challenge by a 67 to 33% margin. Matt, welcome to the forum.
Hey, Richard, thank you for having me.
Just for the record, the Democratic candidate was invited to join this forum, but they declined to attend. So, Matt, this is an opportunity for you to let voters know more about your candidacy, why you're running, and what some of your priorities would be. I'm going to start out with this, which I think gives a picture to the voters of who you are and some of your priority issues. You've been endorsed by the National Rifle Association, also endorsed by Kentucky Right to Life, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, and the Lexington Professional Firefighters. So the first three are pretty obvious. National Right to Life means that you're pro-Second Amendment. Kentucky Right to Life means that you are a pro-life candidate. And the Kentucky Chamber endorsement means that you are a pro-business candidate. Is that an accurate assessment of those endorsements?
Absolutely it is, yes.
Okay, very good. And then the Lexington Professional Firefighters, how did you garner their endorsement?
Well, it was an interesting way that it came about. One of their members was at a fundraiser of mine, an event of mine up in Kenton County. But he's actually a Lexington firefighter, but he lives in Kenton County. He liked what I had to say, and he went back and talked to his association. They learned about my wife and I's long history or record of supporting our local fire departments here in Scott County, and that's, I think, the things that kind of led them to feel comfortable with endorsing me in the race.
Okay, very good. So does Lexington, and I looked at the map earlier and I could have overlooked this, but your district does not go into Fayette County, does it?
No, it does. It does. There's a portion.
I might have been looking at an old map. So I kind of stumbled in the beginning, but it is all of Scott County, all of Grant County, part of Kenton, and then part of Fayette County. Is that correct?
That's right. It's the southern half of Kenton County from Independence downward. And then Fayette, it starts over for people who may be familiar with the area, Masterson Station over to Keeneland. And so it's a swath in the northwest corner of Fayette County.
Okay, very good. Matt, you are a local businessman. You and your wife have a restaurant in Georgetown. You're also, to add to your background, you've also served in the Army National Guard for 20 years. How have those two job descriptions, if you will, prepared you for this representing the 17th Senate District?
That's a great question. Obviously, leadership experience through the military. I was an infantry officer for a number of years and then a military intelligence officer ending my career. And so just the leadership skills I learned in the military, I remember vividly in infantry officer basic course, our company commander, he talked about, teaching us to be leaders in any field that we went in. He said, whether it's in the Army or running a shipyard, he said, I'm teaching to be leaders, and these skills apply universally. And that stuck with me, and I absolutely can see that. Part of my military career was spent in Frankfurt at Joint Force Headquarters. I worked on the Adjutant General staff for almost 8 years doing that. And so in that time, I gained a better understanding of the Commonwealth and, what it looks like from Paducah to Pikeville and Covington to, Bell County, where I'm from. Understand that it's a diverse state, and what necessarily works well in one town might not in the other. So I think that's also helped me understand the importance of decisions being made locally when it's appropriate. and it almost always is appropriate for decisions to be made locally. And then, my experience owning a small business, I actually just had this conversation over lunch with a friend, and I said that's one of the 5 things that probably shaped my politics more than anything. Opening the
Mhm.
business, number one, just seeing
Yeah,
how difficult it was, the hurdles we had to go through
yeah,
just so that
yeah,
we can open a business and employ people and pursue the American dream of entrepreneurship. And then seeing operating the businesses, how hard it is to sign the firm a paycheck and make payroll every 2 weeks and
yeah,
all the things that a business owner goes through. And then our challenges during COVID and seeing, understanding, the government overreach during that time, the way
yeah.
it impacted our business and our family. So, this small business ownership, like I said, is one of the 5 things that impacted or kind of shaped my politics more than anything else.
Very good. And Matt, not only do you have small business experience, but you have experience working for a large corporation. You've worked for Toyota for a number of years. What are some of the challenges that large businesses face here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Yeah, and exactly. I understand small and large business. I work for Toyota Two Show. We're the trading arm of the Toyota Group companies. I've been there 17 years. They recruited me to start their corporate security program 17 years ago. A few years after that, I started a community relations and government relations program. And then just this last year, they've asked me to develop an enterprise risk management department. So I'm currently the vice president of enterprise risk management. In between there, I've held other roles. For example, I was the vice president of human resources for North America during COVID. I went there during that time to help stabilize operations. I've learned a lot about, the needs of large businesses when we locate, when we're looking to expand, what we look at in that local market from a workforce perspective, infrastructure, the things that it requires a large company to locate somewhere, the things that will drive them to select a location. And so I think that's going to help me in the Senate consider investments in infrastructure, consider what we need to do to solve workforce issues throughout our Commonwealth so that we can continue to recruit and retain the companies that are necessary to employ, all our citizens.
Matt, you mentioned that you were the vice president of human resources. One of the biggest complaints that business owners have, whether they're small or large, is finding qualified work to fill the jobs that are available. And I hear this all across the state. I think it's a challenge all across the country. What are some of the challenges that are impeding small or large businesses from filling the open roles, or what are the things? What needs to change? Kentucky right now, by the way, is 45th as far as participation in the workforce. There are only a handful of states that we are above. What's going on there, and what needs to change in order to get more people into the workforce?
Well, you took my answer, Richard. That was going to be the first thing I mentioned. Workforce participation rates are they're abysmal
Yeah,
nationally. Even the number one state, the participation rate is too low. But being the 45th state is a sad commentary. So that's one thing we've got to look at, how we can encourage people to reenter the workforce, make sure people understand the dignity of work,
yeah, yeah,
not just to put a roof over your head, but there's actual dignity in it as well.
yeah,
So that's the first thing. One thing we need to do probably a better job of is making sure that our primary and secondary and post secondary schools are aligning curriculum with need. And so
yeah,
that, our students are graduating and they're ready to enter the workforce and they're prepared to do that. We've got a great example of that here in Scott County. Toyota Motor Manufacturing, not the company I work for, but the company that makes the cars. They're a great community partner. They've done a bunch of different things to help in that regard. They just started a Ford Key Academy where kids are students are learning about what it looks like to work in a production facility and helping them understand it's not kind of getting rid of some of the stigmas that are around that. It's not the dirty,
mhm,
unsafe environment that most people think of when they think of a factory. And so it's really opening their eyes to that as a viable opportunity to, again, provide for themselves and their families someday. And so those are things we need to do. And, I'm from Appalachia. from Bell County, and I recognize that a we've got a large population of good, hardworking folks there who have found themselves to be out of a job due to the collapse of the coal industry. I would love to see if we can explore a way to to marry that population with some of the opportunities that we have not far away in central Kentucky. I've had some ideas in the past, and those are things I'd like to pursue if given the opportunity to serve in the Senate.
Kentucky is at a crossroads. We can choose to give in to the radical left, or we can choose to engage the culture in a God-honoring way.
I started the Commonwealth Policy Center because I believe that Christians have a responsibility to influence government and society to the glory of God. While the Commonwealth Policy Center's made a significant impact, our work isn't finished. If you'd like to join our movement working for timeless values, then head to our website.
To learn more, go to commonwealthpolicycenter.org.
Very good. If you are just joining us, you are tuned into the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum for Senate District 17, and I am joined by Matt Nunn. Matt, I want to press into a little bit further as to things that would hinder full or improved workforce participation in Kentucky. A couple of years ago, there was an attempt to have work or education requirements for those receiving Medicaid. And this was actually passed into law by the Republican legislature. There was a court challenge to that, and a judge said, yeah, you can't do it for whatever reason. I don't recall the details of that legal ruling, but nonetheless, there have been efforts made to have some requirements if you're going to receive some kind of state benefit, and if you were able-bodied and working age and not a primary caregiver, then you needed to at least work part-time, 20 hours a week, or go to school part-time, or volunteer. So there were several options there, but that was struck down by a judge. And here's my question. Are there policies like that that hinder Kentuckians from entering the workforce?
Yes, I don't know that I'd say that hinders Kentuckians, but it doesn't motivate Kentuckians from entering the workforce.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would support something like that. I'd support solutions such as that. I talk a lot about creative solutions to problems. I think that's what legislators are tasked to do. Not that the government is the cure for all of our ills, but when there's an appropriate role for government, I think that we have to be creative problem solvers. I'll spend an entire career doing that, whether it's through my small business or with Toy to Show America. And another reason why I would support that is I've seen it work in action. When I was a young man, I worked at Community Action Agency, Bell Whitley Community Action Agency, and that was in the late 90s. When the Welfare to Work program was active. And I saw individuals come there and work through the Welfare to Work program. I saw them learn that dignity of work that we just got done talking about, and it led to them taking a next step and finding full-time employment elsewhere. So I'd absolutely be supportive of solutions such as that.
Matt, I want to go to your website and share some of the positions that you have staked out. You said the very first thing listed as far as policy positions, you say that you will protect life, free speech, and the Second Amendment. We already touched on the Second Amendment and your endorsement by the NRA. Tell us more about your position on the sanctity of human life.
Well, I am 100% pro-life. I was endorsed by Kentucky Right to Life for that position, but also because of my wife and I's longstanding support for life-affirming organizations. So, we don't just talk the talk; we try to walk the walk and try to, support organizations that help, expectant mothers or, even women after they have a child, like, the 911 Pregnancy Center does, help them, align them with resources that they need. A young, particularly unwed mother, that's a daunting proposition to have a child.
Yeah.
And so, we've got to, as a community, make sure those women understand they're not alone, as the name of the organization states, and there's people there that are willing to help them and want to help them, and there's resources available, and do all we can to, walk alongside them, meet them where they are. And so I'm 100% pro-choice, and I think it's important that we.
Pro-life, you mean? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You said 100% pro-choice. Just to clarify, you mean pro-life?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, that's
I'm 100% pro-life. Thank you for catching me on that. But no, yeah, we absolutely have to, as a community, be there to help people and their help, expectant mothers in those situations, so that they can make the proper decision and have carry that child.
very good. Matt, the second policy priority issue you have is free speech. Is free speech under attack today?
It absolutely is. We think about some of the terms we hear, that words are violence. We hear, my family and I were watching some short videos on YouTube the other night, and one of them was about a gathering of people, and someone was saying things that the other folks didn't like, and someone said, "Well, I feel unsafe," and if we're in a place where people's words make them feel unsafe, that's a scary place to be in. Not to be an alarmist, but I think anybody who's spent much time on social media understands what's going on in Europe now, what's going on in England, where people are being arrested for their social media posts. If you'd asked someone in England 15, 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, if that was possible, they would have laughed at you. And so, I again, don't want to sound like an alarmist, but if you're paying attention, you recognize that there are people who feel like words are violence and that there should be limitations on speech. And I think it's a very dangerous place. We can't express ourselves freely. We can't share ideas. That's the beginning of the erosion of our freedoms.
Matt, if I could put a finer point on this, I think what you're suggesting is that some people feel threatened by ideas or different political convictions, as opposed to actually violent speech, which that's a real thing too. When people threaten, we've seen, for example, the latest assassination attempt against President Trump. I believe the perpetrator has posted violent speech on his website or communicated with others that he intended to harm the president, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a difference between actual intent to harm using your speech and then actually just having a different set of values and ideas and political convictions.
You're exactly right. Thank you for making that. That's an important distinction. I appreciate you doing that. But I think all of us, you're about the same age as me. We were raised sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We got to get back to that point.
Yeah. Respecting ideas and political differences, and then not calling that violence, which is going on in this, largely in our universities, where you have safe zones, where you are given trigger warnings before students are introduced to the syllabus and the course readings. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Matt, moving on here, and we are going to wrap this up in a few minutes here. You mentioned that you will make it a priority to eliminate the state income tax to promote economic growth. Currently, Kentucky is on track to move it down to 3.5%. Just a few years ago, the state income tax, they're trying to phase it out.
Yep.
And so tell us more what your priority will be to address the state income tax. Is this, I guess more specifically, is this something that can be expedited, or what can be done to achieve this goal of eliminating the state income tax?
Well, I think the legislature has already put us on a good path. It's already come down. I mean, think about how hard it is for an average family to pay the bills right now. Put gas in the tank, food on the table. Imagine if the state income tax was 2 points higher than it is now. It'd be even tougher.
Yeah.
So I think everyone understands, or at least I hope understands, how reducing the state income tax helps them fight inflation and puts more money in their pocket. I think, again, the legislature has helped us, started us on the right course. the job of the legislature moving forward is to ensure we stay on that course through fiscal responsibility, not expanding our government, maintain the principles of small government and fiscal responsibility. If we continue to do that, we'll hit the benchmarks that are required to reduce the income tax all the way down to zero. I don't know that it can be expedited. I think it's a year-by-year process, but again, it requires continued fiscal responsibility, and that's something that I intend to do.
Very good. Matt, we are just about out of time. This is an abbreviated candidate forum. You've had the platform here. Your opponent chose not to join us. You also did a forum with the Commonwealth Policy Center back in this spring, and we'll point others who are interested in learning more back to that forum, which will be available on the Commonwealth Policy Center website. I want to thank you for throwing your hat in the ring and running for State Senate District 17. It's an open seat, as Damon Thayer has chosen not to run for re-election. Matt, we'll give you the last minute here to tell the voters why you think that they should send you to Frankfort.
Well, Richard, thank you for this opportunity to connect with voters. It's something all candidates need to do. So I appreciate you giving me the platform, and I also appreciate the work that your center does. It's important work. So thank you for that. As I think about why I entered this race, I've lived the American dream. If you want to take the time to research on my website or my Facebook page, you can understand why I say that. I think this is the greatest country in the world, and I want to ensure that this remains a great place, meaning Central Kentucky, where District 17 lies, a great place to pursue the American dream. There are lots of things that lie before us as a Commonwealth. There are a lot of consequential matters that are still to be decided to ensure that this remains a great place to pursue the American dream. So it was very important to me, and I hope it's very important to you that we have people with conservative values, but also a proven track record of getting things done, representing this great place that we call home. And I think I know I check both those boxes. I have conservative values, and my experience in the military, my experience operating a small business, and my experience in corporate America has given me the ability to get things done. And that's what I'll do in Frankfort. And I really hope that the voters see it that way and give me the opportunity to do so.
All right, Matt Nunn, thank you so much for joining us on this candidate forum. Best wishes to you on Election Day. And voters, don't forget, the election is Tuesday, November the 5th. Early voting starts on November the 1st. Make sure you learn as much as you can about the candidates and then get out and vote.